Last night, there were immediate comparisons to a similar attack in Nice, France last summer. 86 people died during Bastille Day celebrations when a Tunisian-born man steered his vehicle straight into the crowd gathered by the beach. Well, French President François Hollande today sent a message of solidarity to Berlin and Germany.
France knows what a terrorist attack represents, the grief and hardship it can cause. And France knows how united we must be. It must be the case for a country when it is hit. It must be the case for the whole of Europe and even for the entire world in the face of the terrorist threat.
That was the French president there, François Hollande. I'm joined here at the big table by Dr. Raphael Bossang, a terrorism and security expert from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Mr. Bossang, it's good to have you on the day. So-called Islamic State says they did it. How credible is that claim? And secondly, what does that do to the calculus of the government now as it deals with this tragedy?
Well, I think it's fairly credible. I mean, we don't have a full body of evidence yet that backs this up, and there are no details released in the statement about the attacker, and it could be somebody just being inspired by IS and its ideology, and IS subsequently claiming it's to its soldier. But I think given the situation IS is in and what they have been pronounced over the years, I think it's really quite believable that this is really standing behind it. In terms of calculus, it's not coming as a surprise, unfortunately. I mean, these kind of scenarios have been predicted for quite a long time, and of course there's always room for improvement. And the debate has been going on for months already, well before this attack. But by and large, I think, as you've heard probably many times during this day, these kind of attacks are something that is very hard to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, there's no absolute security anywhere. We know that Islamic State says they were responsible, but, you know, the suspect, the refugee from Pakistan who was taken into custody last night has been released because it turns out there wasn't enough evidence. I mean, it turns out he was not the truck driver. Is Islamic State then, by saying they're responsible for this, are they trying to steer the thinking of the public before a suspect is even found?
Well, this is one way of looking at it. I mean, it's unusual in the sense that normally IS attacks would involve a suicide attack, and in this case, the sort of perpetrator absconded. So in that sense, one could speculate that they're really trying to claim a space that is open for them.
I mean, even then, you would have DNA evidence. I mean, there's no evidence right now.
Well, obviously, the person they arrested is not the guy. I mean, it's not just not enough evidence. I mean, it simply is not the guy, because in this case, really, it would be literally the smoking gun and the blood and everything. So the person simply got lost. And IS steering the public perception, I mean, this is something they have honed for many, many years. And of course, they would really try to do that. But given that no other organization or actor has really claimed responsibility, or there is no video, I think, once again, it's pretty plausible that it may not be strategically directed by them, but certainly they have the room to take that.
How worried are you, though, that even the implication of a suspect being a refugee, and that's what we were saying last night, how worried are you that this will eventually lead to Germany, or maybe even the European Union, one day just basically having a migration policy, that the doors are shut?
Well, the kind of the tendency to sort of emphasize border security and sort of have much more stringent controls on the people who come here is, again, also not a new thing. I mean, as you mentioned, Nice is already a year ago, and there is previous attacks. The Paris attacks, most notably, really represented the turning point where, for the first time, there was credible evidence that the routes have been used from Syria to sort of re-infiltrate sort of actors from there, although they may have had alternatives. So I don't think it will drastically and fundamentally change the debate. I'm more concerned that Germany has been in a difficult situation in this migration crisis versus other European partners, and now it might be other actors saying, look, now you've now we've been proven right. I think I would not sign up to this kind of quick argument, but it will certainly not ease the German position in whatever will come in the next months for migration policy.
Yeah, we've already seen a little bit of that, I told you so coming in the political forces against the German Chancellor tonight. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Mr. Bolsang with the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you very much for being on the day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, here in Berlin, we have reported time and time again on terror attacks in other European capitals. Now it appears Berlin is the latest target of terror. Now, finding an explanation using logic to describe what seems illogical, it can even defy the mental powers of a physicist and a chancellor.
Millionen von Menschen, auch ich,
Millions of people, myself included, are asking themselves this morning, how can we accept that so many people, strolling through a Christmas market, a place of celebration, met their deaths at the hands of a murderer? I don't have the answer either. I only know that we cannot and will not give up visiting our Christmas markets or spending time with family and friends in our city squares. Neither will we allow a fear of evil to paralyze us, even if it's difficult right now. We will find the strength to live our lives the way we want to in Germany, free, together, and open.
Well, I'm joined now at the big table by Dr. Isabella Heuser. She is director of the Clinic for Psychiatry and Psychotherapy here in Berlin at the Charité Hospital. She's a leading physician here in Germany in treating trauma patients. Dr. Heuser, it's good to have you here on the show. Unfortunately, in terrible circumstances, the German Chancellor today said that she can't offer an answer to people. Are we talking about a city, a nation right now that has just been traumatized?
I think a lot of people feel traumatized, but I also think that people will get back to normal pretty soon because it is just a psychological defense mechanism that you cannot, bear this burden and this fear. You try to automatically get back to normal. And that is and that sentiment was voiced today by a lot of people on the streets. A lot of people in my hospital, they were saying exactly that they don't want to get, they don't want to feel restrained. They're going to go to the next Christmas market and they're going to, work around it.
Well, what's been the situation in your hospital? Because we know a lot of the victims were taken to the Charité last night.
Yes, but we have not yet. They were taken, of course, to surgery because they were physically really. Some of them were really in bad conditions, and some
remain in critical condition tonight.
Yeah, most of them who are still there, they remain in critical condition on the ICU. So, but we were dealing mostly with people who were worried because they were psychologically more sensitive, and of course with next of kin who were asking what's going to happen. Tell me, is he going to be all right? Which of course nobody can really tell.
No one can answer. Yeah. There has been a lot of talk here in Germany about the inevitability of this attack. We've heard it happened in Spain, it happened in the UK, it happened in France. Now it's our turn. Can we talk, though, about people preparing themselves then for a shock and a trauma if they know that they will have to face it themselves one day? Does that help mediate or lessen the traumatic effects?
I think so. I think we got sort of a little bit more callous now because Germany is, if you will, now the third or fourth country, or the fifth, if
there's a long list.
There's a long list where that happened, or the sixth even, and we just had. So I think we were prepared, and the politicians actually always kept saying there is a high, they said, abstract danger, whatever that means, but the concrete danger is not imminent right now. So now it has happened.
It's happened.
And I think we were. Yes, I think for these reasons we were a bit more prepared.
What will be offered to the people who survived the attack in terms of counseling? And I mean, how do they come to terms? Because obviously they're dealing with it differently than you and I would be dealing with it.
Of course. I mean, they will have to deal with probably physical disabilities. I mean, not everybody who survives is actually then in great shape afterwards. That's unfortunately not true. So they have to cope with this. Then they have to cope with the psychological scars and the trauma. And people deal differently with this. Some of them, I mean, all of them probably get offered psychological support.
Right.
And so some of them will take it, others will not take it.
What about the need or this reaction to find someone to blame? We've seen that already in the political world today. Is that part of the first aftermath of trauma?
Well, it is sort of soothing, if you will, if you have somebody to put the blame on, because that's a concrete person. That's no longer this abstract thing.
Or a group of people.
Right, or a group of people. Now that we have this perpetrator at large, I think that is more worrisome now than it has been before, because now there's something really vague and
the killer is on the loose.
And the killer is on the loose, yes.
Dr. Isabella Heuser, as always, very, very enlightening to talk with you under, unfortunately, very, very dark circumstances. But we appreciate you being on the show. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, even as the day ends, the conversation continues online. You'll find us on Twitter, either at DW News, or you can write directly to me at Brent Goff TV. Don't forget to use the hashtag #TheDay. We heard tonight that terrorism is theater. It has no dramatic impact without an audience. And that brings us to what we have wrestled with many times in 2016, fake news versus the real story. Telling the truth has become more than a matter of getting the facts straight. It's also about maneuvering around mirages, illusions, many times created via cyber attacks to foil any attempt at telling it like it is. So tonight, as Islamic State says it's behind the attack on a Berlin Christmas market, we remind ourselves that believing is not always just seeing. It's also verifying and verifying again. We are still in that difficult process, and that's our job. Until we're finished, it is our duty not to set the stage for any show. Thanks for watching, everyone, and remember, tomorrow is another day. We'll see you then.